Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here doing a spoiler review for Durarara, the very first series slash season. It's always weird to do it, but technically it's just the first series. Did the first review a couple days back, so if you want to check that out, I'll put a link in the description below. No spoilers if you haven't seen it by now, because that first part of the series is so old at this point, you've probably already seen it. But if not, and you kind of got thrown into it because the second series has started up and just finished recently, then you can definitely check out my spoiler-free review for that. And like I said, it's in the description right now. But this is completely spoiler-filled, so for anyone who has comments on it, spoiler comments, favorite parts about the the entire series, least favorite parts about it, favorite characters, all sorts of stuff. We'd love to know what you guys thought about it, and going into kind of how it all was set up in this first season or first series. Technically, it's so weird to call it the first season because technically it is the first series, but just going into like my first time watching this series, it was great. Like going into it with all the characters and not knowing who everybody was, I really enjoyed it. A lot of the characters are really funny. Everyone kind of gets an episode, at least one episode. Some characters get multiple episodes. A lot of the characters show up in pretty much every episode. Of course, we have our main three, so we have Mikado, Masaomi, and Henri. So they're like our big three, but everyone's important in this. Like everybody, pretty much everybody gets a title. They get their name shown in the opening sequence, and it shows like everybody in this series is pretty much important. It's like these two characters are shown together, both their names show up. This character is shown alone, or maybe they're looking at this certain character, or with Shizuo and Izaya. Pretty much every opening, I think maybe the second opening doesn't have it, but even for the second series, pretty much every single opening has the two of them fighting during the opening. So it's like, okay, clearly they're connected, which you obviously learned really early on in the series, that Izaya and Shizuo are just wits end with each other, especially Shizuo is at his wits end pretty much all the time. Anybody does anything, boom, he goes nuts. And his episode is probably my favorite in the entire first series, because I remember when I first saw that, and of course on Toonami they don't have any of the swearing, so when he kept saying stuff smells like shit, it kept getting bleeped out, so sometimes it makes me laugh even more when it's bleeped out. But even when I watched it on Netflix and it wasn't bleeped, I was like, it just makes me laugh. And plus I forgot he said that because it had been such a long time. I was like, oh, I remember this mostly because of the scene where everything's like blowing up and like the dog barks because it's flying through the air. I remembered that stuff, but I totally forgot about this stuff. For like the whole episode, he's like, man, it smells like shit. Like, and he sees like the slasher and stuff. He's like, more shit. And it was just so funny to me. Like the whole episode, he's saying that. And the part I think it was when he was with Shinra and Celti, and he was saying like he was talking about Izai, and he was just like, he's dead, he's so freaking dead, and he just kept saying it. Like those scenes I just really loved because they were so funny to me. But every episode is really, really good. The stories, kind of blending together, and Izaya kind of bringing out, little bits little pieces at a time. He's bringing out more and more information. So we find out that Mikado is, leading the dollars, or he's at least the creator of the dollars, and we find out how that plays out and how it's not really meant to be a gang, but it became like just a normal gang because you have bad people who want it to be a gang. So it turns into that, but he made it just as a little thing, and it grew beyond himself and the friends of his that he actually started with. And now he has to he felt like he needed to take responsibility where they kind of took off. He stuck with it and is like, we shouldn't be this. Like, we should, make this a good group. And it worked, in that flashback episode where he's like, holy crap, like, all this graffiti vanished right after I did that post. So it's got to be a ton of people decided to actually, work together and do this. And it's like, it could be a good gang, but then there's still those bad elements to it where it's like, we're a part of the dollars, and they're like actual gang members that want to beat people up. So it's like, oh, the dollars beat up these people, and all this, other stuff. And it was really cool. And then it's like, oh, his best friend Masaomi was the leader of the Yellow Scarves, and then we got his flashback episode, which was probably, I think his was, at least dramatically speaking, his was definitely the best. Shizuo had my favorite because it was so funny to me, but Masaomi had like the best flashback. But Henri's may have been technically a bit more dramatic. Her parents, like, her mom killed her dad and then killed herself, and she was takes control of a demon blade. But just everything that happened where it's like watching the manipulation interplay in the background of these two characters with Masaomi and his girlfriend, whose name I completely forgot. But the manipulation with these two characters in Izaya, where Masaomi's like, man, we were getting beat up by the blue squares, and then your information helped us out, and all this other stuff, and it's like he, realizes that Izaya is like this girl's guardian, which still, I've finished, the second season of this, second series, that still hasn't even been explained, so that's a little weird to me. But he's like technically her legal guardian, so that's just a thing. I mean, they don't even have much of a connection outside of that flashback episode anyway. And the couple of times Isaiah shows up at the hospital, and it was just crazy. It was like, man, he thought he was, he found this great girl, and even early on, it was like, did you just talk to me because Isaiah told you to? And she's like, yeah, at first. And it stunned him for a second, but then he kind of got over it. Like, well, she admits that at first it was like that, but then she actually fell for him. So he kind of, it's nothing to him. And then him living in this world and being the chief and everything of the Yellow Scarves really blows up in his face when the blue squares take his girlfriend and they break her legs, and it just gets crazy, and he freezes and he can't save her, and it's like, man, that haunts him through like the entire series, but we don't see that until a little bit later, and things get really dark with him, because with Mikado, like, it sucks for him, but he's making it work, and with Henri, she basically is just like, it sucks, but same thing, like, she's really toughing it out. But for him, he's the one who really suffers, and I think that's why I feel it's more dramatic, even than Henri's, because she made it work, because she grew up with that crappy life, so it was kind of just a part of, for her at least, it was just a part of her life, as because it was, for her, technically, it was normal. So it was like, she just kind of grew up like, whatever. But for Masaomi, you could tell, especially with him growing up with Mikado, they had kind of a normal, um, childhood. So for him, he went into it, and it kind of just shattered his world, because he's like, oh, I'm still just having fun like when I was, back home with my best friend. And then it just completely fell apart when it got into like real gang stuff, and his girlfriend gets her legs broken, and it shatters him. So just loved how all that stuff played out, and the three of them kind of working together at towards the end of the episode, and kind of finding out certain stuff, and still not really finding out everything about each other. They're just kind of thrown into it, but it's kind of like everyone else around them knows all their secrets, but they still don't know each other's secrets. It's just like, oh, this happened, and they find out little stuff about Masaomi with the Yellow Scarves. But I just love the way that it all played out, and Izaya, just being Izaya is just crazy. And then, of course, a ton of the other crazy characters, Seiji, and I don't know what the deal is with Seiji. I mean, he just has two women who are just insane. His sister's, like, trying to bang him, and then this crazy girl, he almost killed her, and because his sister kind of wants to bang him, she's like, okay, I'll just, we'll do, plastic surgery on her or whatever. It's like, you don't really care about her, it's just, Celti's head and all this. So he's kind of crazy, and obviously the Stalker girl is pretty nuts, and his sister's nuts. The three of them are just like, and so every time I watch them, like, they're just all nuts. Like, he's kind of crazy, Stalker's crazy, sister's crazy, and it's just crazy. All three of them are just nuts. I love Simon, he's pretty awesome. Just, he and Shizuo are always talked about as like the strongest people, so there's always random stuff going on with the two of them, especially Shizuo and stuff. Also, probably my favorite moment of the entire series, Shizuo fighting the dude in the dollars that's always who's like the boyfriend of one of the three Harajuku girls, and that starts that little gang war, or like he brings a bunch of people back, and Shizuo punched that dude literally out of his clothes. I don't know how many times I rewound that when I first saw this show, but that was like one of the craziest things I've ever seen in anime. He got hit him in the head. He's like, you tried to kill me, so I gotta, get revenge on you now. Like, if you die, that's kind of justified because you wanted me to die. And he just punches him out of his clothing. That was just one of the funniest things I've ever seen. So, love that episode. Anything with Shizuo is always awesome, and plus he's a really cool fighter. So like towards the end of the series, when the Saika stuff really comes up, and we find out that there are different versions of Saika, that was pretty cool too. And he gets to like fight with all these people and stuff, and he basically does like the Street Fighter spin kick out of nowhere. Like, he's just standing and he does the spin kick and everyone flies back, and it's just really cool. So everyone has their epic moments. He has that. Mikado has the great moment. I think it was when he was trying to protect the girl that Seiji's with, and he actually utilized the dollars, and it worked. And I thought that was a great episode. That was like the big moment. That was kind of the big reveal for him as well. That was the big episode. But that was a great moment. Also, cool cameo by two Bakano characters during that scene. But everyone has like their own epic moments. Ton of great comedy in it. Loved the series, so I was super excited when X2 actually came out, and I was so happy. And like I mentioned in my spoiler-free review, I had to rewatch the whole series to learn everything. It's like, oh, that's why Celti didn't get her head at the end, or this is like Seiji's girlfriend. I was like, I know that's not Celti's real head, but I totally forgot how that worked out. I forgot the story behind it. I was like, okay, so it was makeup and stuff like that, and all this other stuff, and how Shinra fell for Celti because it was kind of like Seiji's story a little bit. Like Shinra fell for the body, and Seiji fell for just the head. So it's kind of the same, but in a sense it worked out for both of them, and they're both a little messed up because Shinra, he's really silly and stuff, but there's some things that he does where it's like clearly the line of work that he's in is pretty effed up, and he does like some illegal like backdoor surgery and stuff, and he works for like the pharmaceutical company. Like, oh, you guys like destroyed this dude, and you want me to basically like wipe his memory is what they wanted him to do, and it's like, sure, I can get it done. It's complicated, but I can make that happen. I can like erase people's memory, like crazy stuff. So he has a dark side to him as well, and that's one of the good things about the show. Is like it'll be good characters, but to make a living, they kind of do slightly darker things. And they normally keep it really lighthearted with him. It's only like a couple of moments where he actually helps like the bad guys, but it's kind of cool seeing that. It's like he's generally just the really funny guy, and he's always trying to be with Celti and stuff, but there's definitely an underlying kind of darkness there. So definitely a great series. Really loved it. Having a great time with the second series. I know it technically ended already, but I'm waiting for it to come on Netflix, which is only like I think next week. It comes out July 1st. The final season. If there are only 3 seasons, I'm not 100% sure. But if there are only 3 seasons of series 2, then I'm close to being done with that. So I'm looking forward to that. But really love this series. It's definitely one of my favorite anime. I mentioned in my spoiler-free review. This is one that I forget about whenever I think of like my favorite anime, but it really is one of my favorites. Like I really loved it. It actually has cool action in it. Definitely has crazy drama, and the story is just a great bit of mystery thrown in. So it's like I don't know what's happening. There's big gangs going on, and then we find out they're two best friends are leading these two gangs. One of which is not meant to be like an actual gang, but it's just technically no rules, so it kind of becomes just a normal gang, a colorless gang. So just the way the story unfolds is really freaking great as far as I'm concerned, and it has, of course, tons of great comedy. I think pretty much every character is memorable in some way. Like maybe the least memorable character for the first series, probably technically speaking, if I had to pick a character, I guess it would be Shizuo's brother because he showed up in one episode. Technically two, if you count the OVA. Which I guess technically would make it the twins. Isa's twin sister show up like only in that OVA. And Shizuo's brother shows up in the flashback episode as well as the OVA. But pretty much everyone has some memorable moment. Seiji's sister isn't exactly memorable to me. Like, even when she's with Izai all the time, I think in the second series she gets way more memorable because she starts to change things up a little bit. But I think as far as this one, it was kind of like, okay, so she kind of wants to be with her brother. Even when I watched the series the second time, it kind of flew by so fast how she transitioned from working with the pharmaceutical company to working with Izaya. I still don't 100% remember because I was like, I kind of don't care. And even as I watched it, I somehow missed why exactly did she start working for Izaya. I still don't really remember. I'd have to look it up because when it happened in that episode, it was kind of so irrelevant to me because her character does nothing except for like the one episode where it's like, oh, it's her episode in Seiji's flashback thing, and that's really it. And that's already after she does the transition. So even after that, I was like, I watched every episode, and I still don't know exactly why she started, like how she ended up being employed by Izai. Like I think it was because she got fired from the pharmaceutical company, or something like that. I think that's what it was because she took the head or something happened. I don't remember. I just know she's involved with Shinra's dad because he's a part of the company and just little stuff. So still don't even know. Like that's how relevant she is to me. But I think she gets better in the most recent series. I think they did some good stuff with her, but still enjoyable. Everyone just has some, still, even when they don't have big moments, still enjoyable characters. Like, she did have that great moment with Mikado, which was more his moment than hers when she got, shocked, like, holy crap, he's got numbers on his side. But really love the show. Definitely want to know, including spoilers, what your favorite parts of this series are. Favorite characters, least favorite characters, favorite moments. If you saw the OVA, I would love to know what you guys thought about that, because I mentioned in my review, I think that was like the first OVA I really saw, and it was just like, what is this for? Like, they did the ending to the story, and especially when I saw it on Netflix, because Toonami does like the shortened ending, so they may have actually had it, but for the ending of the first series, the titles and everything show up as the episode still goes on, so there's really nothing, there's not a full ending. So I think they kind of cut that, maybe, on Toonami, and then it was like, okay, next week there's another episode. I was like, oh, this is weird. It's just like a random thing. There are these random characters, like, oh, he's like has sisters. That's weird, and it's a little bit later, so the story's done, and it's just like, here's an episode, and it was basically Mikado and Henri on TV, and they weren't on a date, but they were kind of playing around with that idea again. I think it was Valentine's Day, or I forgot exactly what it's called in Japan, but it was that. And so they're on TV, excuse me, and Mikado's being embarrassed because he's not really with Henri, but everybody thinks they are, so they're just blasted on TV. And then it's little stuff with Shizuo's brother, and then his sisters come in. And it was just a weird episode after the main series, and I didn't know that it was like, an OVA thing, so it just really threw me off. But I wish I kind of want to watch it again, because I wanted to see it after I finished the first season. Unfortunately, Netflix doesn't do OVAs, which I always found weird, because I've watched a couple other anime, and it's like, I know this has an OVA to it as well, and it's like they don't put it in on Netflix, and I always thought that was so weird. It's like it's licensed separately or something weird like that. They don't ever put OVAs in on Netflix, so didn't get to see it again after I finished the main story, which I really wanted to, because it's like, well, I want to kind of get my first introduction again to these characters, because they technically get introduced in that OVA, which did come out like years before a Series 2 did, so it's kind of like you had to read the manga to know who they were, unless you saw the OVA, so I slightly remembered who they were. But their introduction, once the second series starts, is just like, here they are, and that's it. So they get like actual introductions a little bit better for some of the new characters in that OVA thing. But great series. I can't believe it took this long for it to get, its second series, but second series has been phenomenal so far. Like I said, though, definitely want to know what you guys thought about this, the first part of the series, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.